The reason why we wanted to talk about custom indexing today broadly is because we're very excited to be able to offer to our clients and our potential clients a... You guys hear me? Okay, keep going. So we're very excited to be launching this new offering to our clients and to our potential clients. And so the question is, what is custom indexing? And custom indexing is a new product that we're launching that allows you to take generally accepted benchmarks, indices, whatever you want, say the Russell 3000, the S&P 500, a value index, and impart your taste and preferences on that index. And so maybe you don't want to own tobacco names, or you don't want to own coal names, or any sorts of names that you don't want to own because you get stock options from those companies, or anything. We can, in a diversified and tax-efficient way, mimic the returns of indices, keeping into consideration tracking error, while also tax loss harvesting along the way. And the reason why this is possible is because of our partnership with Orion, through our data integrations, through all the tech-enabled data we're able to achieve now, that we can look on a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, annual basis to find those securities that operate in a similar way. And so within any of these strategies, let's say you're mimicking the Russell 3000, we can accomplish that return with far fewer names, giving us optionality in what we want to harvest, when we want to harvest, while still keeping at pace with those returns. And so the reason why I'm mentioning this is because in general, investment is about iteration and improvement, right? And so back in the day, when you wanted to have an asset class delivered for you, you would invest in mutual funds. Mutual funds were great collective investment vehicles, but they tended to be pretty tax inefficient. Not only were they tax inefficient, they could also be pretty costly. You'd have application fees, you'd have redemption fees. A lot of those costs would be hidden in trading. And then along came ETFs, and ETFs made the mutual fund structure far more tax efficient. You would only bear the tax burden of your applications and redemptions within these funds. And so what custom indexing or direct indexing can do is improve upon that as well. So let's take this example. If you, in your brokerage account, hold the S&P 500 as an ETF, you hold SPY, you're getting the benefit of the return of that fund. But what you're not getting by not holding those individual names is the benefit of understanding that over time, not every name is going to be positive in any given year. And so here's an example of various years, I think going back about 6-7 years, and it shows you the return of the index, how many of those securities were positive performers, but also how many were negative performers. And so by understanding how correlations work with various companies, we can sell those underperformers, we can tax loss harvest over time, we can build up those tax assets for our clients, while also keeping pace with the returns of what you are trying to track. And this is just showing how that benefits you over time. This is what we call tax alpha. And so you all know, as investors, the benefits of compounding. And so if you are generating 1% tax alpha in 1 year, that compounds over time. And so over time, that could add up to as much as 11 years into retirement of extra retirement assets. One other benefit that it has for our clients is the ability to diversify those concentrated investments. If you were fortunate enough to get stock options, stock from the company in which you work, and you want to track the Russell 3000, US market-wide exposure, we want to take into consideration what those holdings are and not buy those companies that give you similar exposure to Microsoft, for example. So as we're selling out of that concentrated position over time, as we're offsetting it with those losses that we're taking, along the way, we're iterating the portfolio to maintain that consistent exposure while being tax efficient. This also works for if you're selling a business or if you're selling real estate. If you know down the road that you want to sell the business that you've had for decades, that you want to sell that property, that you no longer want to be a landlord, well, then we can do this in advance. We can take this portfolio and we can create those tax assets to offset those gains over time, again, making it more tax efficient down the road when you need to sell out of those assets. And lastly, one customization aspect is prioritizing your values. If you buy the S&P 500, if you buy the Russell 3000, if you buy any of these commercially available ETFs, you're stuck with them. By using our custom indexing strategies, what we can do is at the start create this portfolio without holding any of those names that you don't want to hold for value reasons, religious reasons, or just because you don't want to be exposed to the company that you already have exposure to. Going to bring Justin back on to talk a little bit about our portfolio review process, and then we'll dive into what our offerings are. Again, we can customize it to whatever you want, but what our pre-canned offerings are, and then dive into some Q&A as well.